The Scott Jennings Show is proudly sponsored by Lear Capital. Since 1997, Lear has helped Americans protect their retirement accounts and savings with physical gold and silver. With thousands of five-star reviews and $3 billion in transactions, Lear is who I trust to help me buy gold and silver. Visit LearScott.com.
The voice of free speech. The truth delivered. Common sense for the American people. Welcome to the Scott Jennings.
President Trump holds a cabinet meeting. We'll bring you some comments from that, including the latest on his back and forth with Iran. The Democratic shutdown of DHS continues. Are we back at square one? We'll have the latest in Washington, and the International Olympic Committee formally bans men from competing in women's sports. We've got some audio to play for you on that. It is Thursday, March 26th. This is Common Sense for the American people. I'm Scott Jennings, broadcasting for Salem, and we are live today at Studio 67 in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. Now, I'm down in South Florida today because I had a speaking engagement this morning, and I want to thank the National Association of Real Estate Investment Trusts for the invitation to speak to them, large national conference down here. And I joined my friend Jonathan Martin from Politico on stage this morning. We had a wide-ranging discussion on the political issues of the day. Great to see J Mart and to be out on the road among people who are vital to making our country work. Now, for the news of the day. We are 41 days into the shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security by Democrats, and there is no deal in sight in Washington, D.C. There was a deal to fund the entire department on the table yesterday, except for ICE, the immigration enforcement piece, and Democrats pulled out at the last minute, despite previously saying that's exactly what they wanted. Republicans put it on the floor anyway. It needed 60 votes. Here's what happened in Cut 21.
On this vote, the yeas are 54, the nays are 46. Three-fifths of the Senate duly chosen and sworn not having voted in the affirmative. The motion upon reconsideration is not agreed to.
Mr. President.
Senator from Ohio.
So the Democrats there, once again, and several times now, tanked funding for the Department of Homeland Security, including the TSA, which is causing massive lines at airports across the country. They had 54 votes there. They needed 6 more Democrats to come to their senses and end this airport nightmare that is affecting thousands and thousands of Americans. Now, in the last few minutes, in this just end of the Scott Jennings Show, Senate Republican leader Duyne says he believes that DHS funding talks may be making a little bit of progress this afternoon, and he says he has given Democrats our last and final offer. So we'll see how they react to that today. But Democrats, it appears to me, are feeling rather good about their position here, the position of inflicting misery on American citizens to create leverage and to placate a radical base that wants an end to all immigration enforcement. Of course, the endless illegal immigration of the Biden years had real consequences in America, deadly consequences, and that's what this is all about. Democrats are using the DHS funding fight to make a point. The point is, we want open borders, and we don't want to deport the illegal aliens, the millions who are already here, even the violent ones. Listen to Congressman Mike Lawler of New York, a Republican, on CNN yesterday. His constituent, 18-year-old Sheridan Gorman, was murdered by an illegal alien in Chicago last weekend. Here's cut number 11.
But look, the Department of Homeland Security needs to be funded. And many of my Democratic colleagues are focused specifically on immigration enforcement. Well, let me show you the consequences of lax immigration enforcement. A 18-year-old girl in my district, Sheridan Gorman, was brutally murdered by an illegal immigrant that was allowed to enter into the country during Joe Biden's administration, captured at the border, released. He was arrested for shoplifting in Chicago, released, and he went and brutally murdered an 18-year-old innocent girl. And Hakeem Jeffries yesterday couldn't even be bothered to say whether or not that type of individual who is arrested for murder, who is in the country illegally, should be deported.
By the way, the callous indifference that Democrats have shown to Miss Gorman and her family, well, it's simply shocking. It's breathtaking. You can't even mourn the death of a violent murder victim in the Democratic Party out of fear of offending the radicals who are hell-bent on unlimited illegal immigration. Now, President Trump made some comments on the shutdown this morning at his cabinet meeting. He's obviously exasperated with the Democratic position here, which is to grind to a halt all immigration enforcement. Here is the president in Cut 15.
They're all angry at the Democrats. They're saying they're actually angry at Schumer. I didn't think anyone knew his name. One woman said, that Schumer is disgraceful. He's a disgrace to our country. But they're angry at the Democrats. They know what's happening. But they're punishing the American people, including travelers at airports, all in the quest to return to open borders and give amnesty to illegal alien criminals. They want to give amnesty to some of the criminals that came into our country, just about all of them, actually, if you look at it. They love sanctuary cities, which is a sanctuary for criminals. They want to make sure they're taken care of. That's what we're fighting about. That's really what they're fighting. They don't talk about that, but that's what they're fighting about. They want to protect criminals. In many cases, 11,888 murders. Many of them, I will say, are gone now because of us. We got them out. But still have some left. Should have never happened. Should have never been allowed to come into our country. But we're not going to let it happen. We're not going to let the Democrats get away with this stuff. And people are wise to them. So they need to end the shutdown immediately, or we'll have to take some very drastic measures.
So while we've been focused on the United States Senate to see if a deal can be struck, over in the House, the Speaker, Mike Johnson, says they'll hold some votes, force Democrats to defend their radical shutdown position. Here's the Speaker in Cut number 12.
Let it happen. We're not going to let the Democrats get away with this stuff, and people are wise to them. So they need to end the shutdown immediately, or we'll have to take some very...
That was not the Speaker, Johnson. That was President Trump. Let's try to get the Speaker here in Cut number 12.
We will not allow Democrats to hold our airports and our country hostage so they can re-implement their catastrophic, deadly open borders policies and threaten the lives of our children. This is common sense versus crazy. Everybody can see it. And they're going to put it on display again tomorrow. As the leader said, we're going to vote to fund Homeland again. And I think that vote tally, that should be blown up. It should be put at poster size in every airport terminal so they can see who voted to keep those lines at TSA winding around the airports and to endanger everybody's life.
But of course, until Democratic senators decide to cave here, the TSA will remain unfunded. More and more agents will not show up for work, and the lines are going to get longer and longer. Other news, the cabinet meeting today brought some updates on the back-channel peace talks going on with Iran as Operation Epic Fury rages on. The president's envoy, Steve Witkoff, says they have sent some terms to the Iranians through Pakistan. Here's Witkoff in Cut 16.
I can report to you today that we have, along with your foreign policy team, presented a 15-point action list that forms the framework for a peace deal. This has been circulated through the Pakistani government, acting as the mediator. And this has resulted in strong and positive messaging in talks, as you just indicated to the press.
We'll see if these talks get more serious in the next few days. And the International Olympic Committee has announced a new policy that protects women's sports by banning men from competing in the women's category. Kirsty Coventry is the president of the IOC. She released a video about this today explaining the decision. Cut 14.
The policy that we have announced is based on science, and it has been led by medical experts with the best interests of athletes at its heart. The scientific evidence is very clear. Male chromosomes give performance advantages in sports that rely on strength, power, or endurance. At the Olympic Games, even the smallest margins can be the difference between victory and defeat. So it's absolutely clear that it would not be fair for biological males to compete in the female category. In addition, in some sports, it would simply not be safe.
The tide continues to shift against the transgender cult, with medical organizations and now sports institutions finally standing up for some common sense. No word, by the way, on how Democrat James Tallarico in Texas is reacting. Of course, he thinks there are 6 genders. He hasn't fully explained how they would be allowed to compete with and against each other in the sports arena. A word from our friends at Relief Factor. Since discovering Relief Factor last summer, you know I've come on the radio here and talked all about it, all about the positive experience that we've had in the Jennings household, especially my father, who really has enjoyed becoming a satisfied customer of Relief Factor. My advice is that if you're going to ever do it, now is the time, because Relief Factor has come up with a new formula. They've added some premium black pepper extract that helps your body absorb it more efficiently. So if you've been waiting for a sign or a reason to finally pull the trigger on this, perhaps black pepper is what you needed. The way to start, by the way, is the 3-week quick start plan for just $19.95. You have very little to lose here. You get 3 weeks of it and find out if it works for you. Do it at relieffactor.com or call 1-800-4RELIEF. Relieffactor.com or 1-800-4RELIEF. We'll have more politics and breaking news coming up after this. It's Common Sense for the American People. I'm Scott Jennings. You're listening on Salem. Stay with us.
Common sense for the American people. This is the Scott Jennings Show.
Hey, it's Scott Jennings. You know, I got to tell you, I think nutrition has gotten way too complicated. Every week there's a new powder, a new lab-created formula, some new breakthrough. But here is the truth. We've been told since we were kids to eat our fruits and vegetables. Nobody really had to explain why. We just did it. Because when you eat whole foods, you're getting phytonutrients, those natural compounds that your body uses to adjust, repair, and respond every single day. That's not hype. That's how human beings were designed. That's why I take Balance of Nature. They use a tailored vacuum cold process that stabilizes the phytonutrition in fruits and veggies, so you're getting real whole food nutrition, not synthetic substitutes. Their whole health system includes fruits and veggies plus fiber and spice, 47 ingredients in one simple routine. I take it myself. If you want to fight the good fight, go to balanceofnature.com to subscribe and save today. Join hundreds of thousands of customers in one simple routine that is changing the world.
One man standing tall against the leftist mob. Here's Scott Jennings.
Okay, it's Thursday, March 26th. Scott Jennings here, broadcasting on location but live from Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. I want to talk to you about a political situation in Louisiana. Politics a little bit interesting down in the state of Louisiana this spring. There is a United States Senate race featuring an incumbent Republican, Bill Cassidy, who is running against a Trump-backed challenger named Julia Letlow, who is currently a member of Congress. So, because Letlow is seeking higher office, that means her congressional seat is open, and that primary comes up in May. Joining me now to discuss this is a candidate for that open congressional seat. His name is Blake Miguez. He's a state senator, and he joins us live here on the Scott Jennings Show. Blake, welcome into the show, and tell us how all of this came about for you, making the jump from state politics now to running for federal office.
Scott, thanks so much for having me on the show. Yes, you're right. Things are very interesting in Louisiana. I'm running for Congress in Louisiana's 5th congressional district that recently opened up when Congresswoman Julia Letlow decided to run the United States Senate. But interestingly enough, I was actually a candidate for the U.S. Senate just 6 months ago, challenging Bill Cassidy, who decided to vote to convict President Trump on impeachment. When President Trump endorsed Julia Letlow, our mission remained the same, which was to support President Trump, put America first, and improve the lives of Louisianans. So I decided to join about a month and a half ago the Louisiana's 5th congressional district, which is wide open. And we are off on the campaign trail, building tremendous momentum for my U.S. Senate run into Congress. And I look forward to getting into the fight to help President Trump save our country.
And you are endorsed by Trump here. So Trump's preferred ticket for Senate and for this congressional seat would be Letlow for Senate and you for Congress. Is that right?
Yes, I'm proud and I'm humbly honored and excited to have the full support and endorsement of President Trump. And the reason he gave me his endorsement, because over the last decade in the Louisiana legislature, I have been a MAGA warrior and have never wavered from the America First agenda. My record is very clear. I'm the most conservative candidate in the race. President Trump, when he endorsed me, called me a MAGA warrior. And he also said I would never let the people of the 5th Congressional District down. And they can expect more of the same conservatism when I get up there to D.C. to be their voice.
Okay, Blake, I do want to give you a chance to rebut some criticism of your candidacy. Some people say that you don't have the residency in this congressional district in which you're running, although running for Congress, I guess, doesn't necessarily require you to live exactly in the district. But they say your home is several miles away from the district. As you have endured these attacks, how have you been responding to them on the campaign trail?
Well, it's important, Scott, for you to understand, and the listeners, who I am. I'm a husband, a father, a business owner, a state legislator, and a world champion shooter. But most importantly, I am a 7th-generation Louisianian. My family settled here in the 1700s. My family built businesses here. We raised families here. And me and my wife, Ashley, who's a special needs public school teacher, we have 4 beautiful children. And we want to help save the country. And the reason why I'm running for office is really simple. I want to make sure my grandchildren grow up in a country as good as the one that our grandparents left us. And the reason why President Trump chose me over the other candidates in the race is he knows he can count on me. The people of Louisiana can count on me, and I'm going to work hard to put this country back on the right track. Because if we let the Democrats get back in control, those people are crazy and they will ruin our country.
All right, Blake, your background as a professional shooter is really interesting to me, and we had a conversation the other day off the air about it. Talk to us about how do you become a professional shooter? What stoked your interest in shooting, and how did you make the leap to being someone who does this as a profession and does it at an extremely high level?
So I'm a former world and national champion pistol shooter. It's actually a hobby of mine and my family. We're actually business people in the oil and gas industry. I grew up shooting with my father. We traveled the world competing for nearly 30 years. I have 3 gold medals and 2 silver medals from representing the United States. But this is Louisiana. We love the outdoors. We love our Second Amendment. I loved it so much that when I ran for office, I turned Louisiana into a Second Amendment powerhouse by passing constitutional carry, giving law-abiding citizens the right to defend themselves and their loved ones without needing government's permission. But Scott, I can tell you, if you ever saw my launch video for the U.S. Senate race, I'm a hell of a shot with a pistol, and I love competing, and I exercise my Second Amendment rights every single day to protect me and my family.
That's Blake Miguez. He is a candidate for Congress down in Louisiana, and it's a little interesting this year. Louisiana having a primary this time around in May versus the normal way you used to do it down there, which is to have these races in the fall and then runoffs in December. So a lot of changes in Louisiana, and you're right in the middle of it. Blake Miguez, we will follow your race and see what shakes out this coming May. We thank you for joining us on the Scott Jennings Show.
Thanks so much. And if anyone wants to know more about my candidacy, they can go to BlakeMiguez.com. That's Blake, B-L-A-K-E, Miguez, M-I-G-U-E-Z.com. Please join our effort, contribute to our campaign, and with a few more bucks, we can get this thing over the finish line to help President Trump save our great country. All
right. Thanks a lot, Blake. When we come back, incumbent Congresswoman Jen Kiggans from Virginia joins us after this.
Gold and silver recently soared to record highs and then pulled back. So are precious metals still a good buy? Many Wall Street experts predict higher prices ahead. Why? Well, because we still have trillions in national debt, a declining dollar, and inflation that keeps shrinking our savings. Even with corrections along the way, gold remains a historical hedge for wealth protection. That's why Morgan Stanley's chief investment officer ditched the 60-40 stocks and bonds portfolio and is recommending up to 20% in precious metals. They're getting educated, and you should too. Call Lear Capital at 1-800-880-2424 for your free gold investment kit and learn how you could qualify for up to $20,000 in bonus gold. Lear Capital has over $3 billion in transactions and thousands of 5-star reviews. Call 1-800-880-2424, 1-800-880-2424, or visit learscott.com.
Ready for more common sense? Here's CNN's senior political commentator, New York Times best-selling author, and America's favorite political pundit, Scott Jennings.
Thursday, March 26th, we have Congresswoman Jen Kiggans from Virginia joining us in just a moment. We got a lot going on in Washington. We'll get her opinion on all of it. First, I do want to remind you that we are still taking reservations for the unforgettable Gulf of America cruise happening in November 2026. That's this year, right after the election, mid-November. I'll be there. Mike Gallagher will be there. Larry O'Connor from townhall.com will be there. A lot of our listeners are signing up as we speak to go on this luxury cruise, the Eurodam, great ship. We'll eat great food. We'll see a lot of amazing scenery. We're going to have great conversations. This is right after the election. We'll be analyzing that, talking about the issues that'll shape the 2028 presidential campaign, which will be in full swing by the time we get on this boat. Book your cabin today. Text the word cruise to 94878 or visit scottjenningsshow.com and click on the Gulf of America cruise banner. We're going to be celebrating on this cruise the 250th anniversary of our nation. And Mike and Larry and Jen, and we all look forward to meeting you. We're going to have a lot of like-minded conservatives on this boat, having a lot of great conversation, have a lot of fun, and we hope to see you there. All right, as I mentioned, we have a lot going on in Washington today. We've got the DHS shutdown continuing. We had a cabinet meeting this morning. Here to discuss it all is the Congresswoman from Virginia's 2nd District, a former Navy helicopter pilot. She's in her second term. Jen Kiggans, Congresswoman from Virginia, is here on the Scott Jennings Show. Jen, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. I wish I could go on your Gulf of America cruise. That sounds awesome.
Well, there's nothing stopping you. You can sign up just like anybody else. Text the word cruise to 94878. Jen, we'll have a great time, and I'm sure a lot of people who appreciate your service to our country would love to see you there. Jen, let me ask you about what we heard this morning out of the president. There was a cabinet meeting, and he made some comments, and he had his envoy Witkoff there talking about the 15-point plan or 15-point framework that we've sent to the Iranians, I guess, via the Pakistani government. So based on what you're hearing from the administration, based on what we heard out of the cabinet, what's your instinct about how much longer this is going to go on? How do you think the Iranians are going to react to this after we have just pummeled all of their military for the last several weeks?
I think I would say that, Iran doesn't have a whole lot of choices left. So, I mean, I think that they see the reality and what strength looks like on the military front. And I'm certainly thankful for our men and women, especially the ones from my Virginia 2nd District and the Navy, who are out there in harm's way. I mean, they, working with our allied partners, have made a lot of progress in reminding Iran of our objectives and goals of them not to have ballistic missile capability and nuclear weapons. And we could even exert more force, and I think we are showing, and that's a tool that we reserve. But I certainly hope that they are coming to a place where they are going to agree to terms. I think this was originally a operation that was introduced as a 3 to 4 week operation, and we're certainly approaching that time frame. And so I'd like to get my USS Ford, my Carrier Strike Group, home, but they're doing important work. And Iran chose this fight decades ago. This is a regime that we need to take care of. I think we are doing the right thing, but I certainly look forward to wrapping this up. And I think Iran is running out of options. So this is definitely agreeing to the president's peace plan would be the right thing for them to do.
Representative Kiggans, you flew helicopters in the Navy, so you sort of have a unique perspective on the performance of the U.S. military here. And obviously you have a lot of military and veterans presence in your congressional district. Talk to us as a veteran. What do you see the U.S. military doing here? Give us an idea of just how efficient and lethal and excellent this military operation has been for the United States.
Yeah, we are the best fighting force in the world, and I can speak to the Navy, especially not only as a former helicopter pilot. I'm married to an F-18 pilot who flew for 20 years. I'm also a proud mom of a naval aviator, so it's definitely a family business for not just me, but for so many of the families that I represent in Hampton Roads, Virginia. And this is just a demonstration of peace through strength. It's kind of night and day compared to the last administration. I served in Congress under Joe Biden's administration for 2 years, and we saw what happened to world peace at that time. We saw Russia invade Ukraine. We saw the Chinese becoming more aggressive. We saw what happened in Israel on October 7th and these increasing threats coming out of Iran and their terrorist proxies. So I certainly applaud the actions of this administration that we are taking to provide stability, to bring back world peace. We do that through strength, that there's no other way to do it. And I can think of no country better suited or better equipped to lead in that space than ours. And we do that because of the brave men and women in our all-volunteer force who sign up, to be the tip of the spear, to be away from their families for months at a time. But I'm grateful for their service. It's one of the privileges I have here in Congress, is just supporting not only our active duty military, but also their families. We have so many that we try very, very hard to take care of in Virginia. But there's more work to do, and that's one of the things that I enjoy most about my job, making sure they have the resources, the technology, all the weapon systems, everything our warfighters need, but also taking care of their loved ones.
Jen Kiggans, Congresswoman from Virginia, is our guest here on the Scott Jennings Show. Recently, representative in Virginia, there was a tragedy there at Old Dominion University. We saw someone, to me, it's a crazy story of someone who was a naturalized citizen, gets in the National Guard, gets convicted of trying to help ISIS, then somehow gets out of jail early and goes over to ODU and kills an ROTC instructor and eventually is killed himself by the students in the classroom. How worried are you right now about the threat of radical Islamic terrorism inside the United States of America?
Yeah, well, it's always a concern because, again, under the last administration, we saw 14 million plus people just walk right over our southern border. I had been to Texas and Arizona myself and seen them with my own eyes, just putting ladders up against parts of the wall, climbing right over. No one stopped them. We know that a lot of those people wanted to do harm to our country. They are here. I think we are seeing that manifested with just the crimes that illegal immigrants who are in this country have committed. And that shooting that we had 2 weeks ago at Old Dominion University in Virginia is just as a prime example. I mean, this was a naturalized person who had terrorist ties, who was a convicted felon. He bought a stolen gun, a complete disregard for any gun laws, and he walked right onto a college campus and he targeted our military, our Army ROTC students, and unfortunately shot and killed their instructor. But we can't have this. I have a lot of people in uniform walking around Hampton Roads, Virginia, and their families, and especially at a time like this when so many are deployed, I don't need them to be worried about the safety of their families. I have children who are college-age students who participate in ROTC programs. I worry about their safety as well, but we've seen some of the laws coming out of Richmond in Virginia that just undermine community safety. There's an actual Virginia law that says that colleges and universities cannot ask on their applications if people have a past felony history. So if we could have asked that question, we could have prevented this tragedy. So there's some changes that need to be made. I also have a governor in Virginia who is telling law enforcement that they cannot work with ICE on their mission of ridding our streets of criminal illegal immigrants. So it's very frustrating to see some of the policies coming out of the Democrat legislation in Richmond especially, but that are making our communities and our streets less safe.
Well, and a lot of people are frustrated with the Democratic position on immigration in Washington. Today, the Department of Homeland Security remains closed. I think it's day 41, and the Democrats, I think, have made their position very clear. They don't want to deport any illegal aliens, even the ones who are violent, which we've seen a number of instances of that. They want to go back to the open border policies of Joe Biden, and they're willing to create pain and misery for TSA agents and the American people in order to do that, or at least make a point about that. Obviously, we've been watching the Senate to see what's going to happen over there. I heard the Speaker say you all are going to have some votes in the House to reaffirm the Republican position and get the Democrats back on the record. Give us your assessment. Do you think we're going to see a DHS deal sometime over the weekend? We got a lot of American travelers out there who are dreading going to the airport right now.
Yeah, and I'm with them as well. And we voted just yesterday, yet again, on DHS funding. And, our heart goes out to these TSA agents. I certainly thank them for continuing to work when they are not getting a paycheck, especially after the stunt the Democrats pulled last fall, with also withholding pay from so many of our federal workers. But we have to do better than that. It's frustrating to me that, I'd like to find another funding source for them. I think we should, just like we find ways to pay our military. These people are not only working to keep our homeland safe, but our skies safe. As a pilot, this is important. Aviation safety is important. These are the people on the front line. So it is a source of frustration, but this is the Democrats just simply voting no over partisan politics, and it's wrong. They're doing this over people's paychecks. These people have families to take care of, and I'm proud of the people that continue to show up to work, but what the Democrats are doing to hurt them just over political ideology has to stop.
Let's talk about politics in Virginia. The Democrats who won the November election, including the governor, are pushing a redistricting referendum that's coming up in just a few weeks in Virginia, and they would redraw the state's congressional map and make it 10 Democrats to 1 Republican, at least on paper. You're in one of the districts represented by a Republican that would be eliminated. What's your message to the people of Virginia about why they need to vote no against this blatant gerrymandering being pushed by Abigail Spanberger?
Yeah, it is insane. I mean, vote no is certainly the message in the election. The special election is April 21st, but early voting is open and has started. And what this does to the Commonwealth of Virginia is unconstitutional. It's illegal. It's really un-American. I mean, to think that they've taken what is truly a purple state, Virginia, and we have currently 5 Republicans and 6 Democrats, and they want to gerrymander it. And then when I say gerrymandering, that means you change all the zigzag, all the congressional lines all over the place to make it so that Virginia would be represented by 10 Democrats and 1 Republican. That's 92% of Virginia that would be represented by one political party in a state that 47% of us voted for Donald Trump and 52% voted for Harris last election. But it's the most egregious power overreach I have ever seen in my life. And oh, by the way, it goes against the independent redistricting commission that we voted on 5 years ago. 67% of Virginians voted to have an independent commission draw pretty fair lines. So we're overriding that. It's just an overreach of power. It's something we've seen coming out of the Spanberger administration in Richmond. I mean, she's been lying to Virginia since day one. It's egregious what they're trying to accomplish. But I just need people to come out and vote no and to bring friends with them.
Okay, Jen Kiggans, Congresswoman from Virginia, thanks for your time, and thank you for your service. Thank your husband for his service and your son. We are proud of what you've done for our country. We're going to take a break. When we come back, talk a little bit more about this terrible shooting in Chicago. Stay with us here on Salem.
He's the author of the best-selling book, A Revolution of Common Sense. Here's Scott Jennings.
Thanks for listening to Common Sense for the American People. Scott Jennings is here with you on Salem. You know, it was in March of 1775 at St. John's Church in Richmond where Patrick Henry rose to speak the words that spurred the American Revolution. And they echo through our history today. He said, "Give me liberty or give me death." As we celebrate America's 250th anniversary, it has never been more important to reflect on our nation's values. My friends at Americans for Prosperity have created a way for us to celebrate this historic year through their One Small Step initiative. It's a campaign built on a simple idea that liberty requires courage, conviction, and an active citizenry. And for almost 250 years, Americans have preserved liberty through small, deliberate steps. And now it's on us, in the face of tremendous opposition to these ideals, to ensure these freedoms are passed on to the next generation. If you believe, as I do, and as AFP does, that freedom is worth defending, I encourage you to visit the A250toolkit.com/Scott and add your voice for liberty. It's A250toolkit.com/Scott. I'm going to engage in this campaign. I am really excited about America 250. There's a lot of great things going on in our country. This is one of them. I hope you'll check it out. A250toolkit.com/Scott. Going to close up the hour with a story for you about the state of American journalism and the kinds of people that we are training to be part of the media industry. This story has to do with the cold-blooded murder of a young college student in Chicago. You've heard us talk about it, 18-year-old Sheridan Gorman. Democrats and mainstream media refuse to acknowledge Sheridan, but I want to talk about it because it needs to be discussed from a lot of different angles. Now, she was a college freshman. She was a daughter. She was a young woman with her whole life ahead of her, but she was taken from us in an instant. And the man accused of pulling the trigger, Jose Medina, he was in the country illegally. He should not have been here at all. He was an illegal alien, a criminal illegal alien. That is the proper term. But if you thought the outrage from institutions of journalism would be focused on the murder, think again. Because the student newspaper at the University of Loyola Chicago, it's called the Loyola Phoenix, well, they focused on something else. Initially, they told the students the truth. They called Medina an illegal immigrant, just the way I did a moment ago. They used the term illegal. They did it, I assume, because they thought it was proper, and they're right about that. But then the pressure came, and then they had to apologize. For what? Not for getting the facts wrong, not for failing to report the story accurately, no. They were forced to apologize for using the correct term, illegal. Now, a young woman here has been murdered, and it turns out the priority of this student newspaper is worrying about offending the illegal alien who shot her to death. Let's be honest about why that is, because the left in this country, which includes many of the people who work in these media organizations, especially student papers, well, they've become obsessed with open borders and creating new terms and euphemisms to describe things like illegal aliens. They call them undocumented, neighbors, friends, members of our community. Let's go over what happened here. The Loyola Phoenix wrote in an editor's note on March 23rd, a post on the Instagram page carried the following headline: immigrant man charged in murder of Sheridan Gorman, DHS involved. That headline did not reflect the most important elements of the story, and it was taken down minutes later to prevent further harm to affected community members, the editor's note continued. Additionally, in the body of the post, we described the man who was charged as an illegal immigrant using language provided to us by the Department of Homeland Security. But that language, the paper says, does not align with Associated Press style, nor does it align with the values of this newspaper. Values? Values, you say? The values of this newspaper are to what? Worry about offending a violent, illegal alien murderer? And mind you, the victim here is one of the college's own students. That's who was murdered. But the paper continued in their retraction, quote, no human's existence is illegal. And we quickly changed our wording to reflect that. We acknowledge the harm such language can cause. They're more worried on the left, folks, about language causing harm than they are about illegal aliens with guns causing harm to 18-year-old students like Sheridan Gorman. Words are violence, folks, but not illegal aliens with guns? Pretty crazy. More to come after this. It's Scott Jennings on Salem. Stay with us.
Portions of the Scott Jennings Show are sponsored in part by Americans for Prosperity. Fighting for free speech. The voice of free civilization. And delivering common sense for the American people.
Common sense for the American people.
Here's
Welcome to the Scott Jennings Show.
It is Thursday, March 26th, hour number 2 of the Scott Jennings Show, on the road again, but in a familiar location. I've been in Florida a lot this winter, and I'm very thankful to all the people who have invited me here. Cold winter back up in Kentucky and New York and Washington, D.C., but I got some reprieves by these trips to Florida. I was down in Miami this morning. Now I'm up in Palm Beach Gardens, my spot where I like to do the radio show when I'm here in South Florida. Thanks to my friend Curtis Bush here at Studio 67 for hosting the show today. Also a special day. It is opening day for Major League Baseball, one of my favorite sports days of the year. I don't count last night. I was on the plane last night coming down here, and I watched the abomination that was the Netflix opening night broadcast of the Giants and the Yankees. A lot of mistakes, not a great viewing experience for your baseball fans out there. I count today as opening day, and games are underway, and we're paying attention to that here. The beginning of baseball season. Every single one of us today has a chance to win. Every single one of us today has hope. That's what you're having that's what baseball is selling you, hope. Today, we all have hope. Tomorrow, we'll all have hope. Next week, we'll see. But today, we all have hope. Let's do a quick check of the headlines, shall we? Comedian Jimmy Kimmel is under heavy criticism for comments that he made about America's working class on his ABC TV late-night show earlier this week. He took to the airwaves to assail President Trump's new Homeland Security Secretary Markwayne Mullin for having a working-class background. Let's take a listen to this in cut number 22.
Rudy Giuliani might not be with us much longer, but don't worry, Trump's got a whole new generation of thinkers lined up, including his newly confirmed Secretary of Homeland Security, Mark Wayne, Chuck Mike, Bruce Dave Mullen. Maybe Mellon's better. He is the now former senator of Oklahoma. Before he was elected to the Senate, Mark Wayne Mullen was a low-level MMA fighter and a plumber. That's right. We have a plumber protecting us from terrorism now. It worked for Super Mario. Why not Mark Wayne? But honestly, I mean...
Ask yourself this question. If you had to be governed by 100 plumbers or 100 sneering, elitist, broken-brained, know-nothing, hack liberal comedians in Hollywood, what would you choose? I know what I would choose. I'd take the plumbers, the working class, every single time. This just into the Scott Jennings Show. An ICE agent has saved the life of a 1-year-old child at JFK Airport. This is breaking as we speak. JFK Airport, New York City. Travelers were waiting in long lines, and an infant, and if you're watching on snc.tv, you can see the video. If you're listening on radio, I'll describe it. You have these airport lines, and an infant became unresponsive and stopped breathing. The panic and the child's family and nearby passengers start freaking out, of course, and an ICE agent heard this. They were stationed at the checkpoint, and the heroic ICE officer immediately springs into action. He runs towards the cries, he grabs the child, and he ended up performing a Heimlich maneuver that restored the infant's breathing after nearly 2 minutes. If you saw it on the screen here, it's really something else. Very dramatic situation. But you have an ICE agent rushing in to help this little child and reviving him. This officer's extraordinary bravery, of course, embodies the selfless service of DHS law enforcement. You know, the same people that are demonized every single day by Democrats in this country. Yeah, I got to tell you, I think having ICE agents at the airports, well, what do we see? They're saving kids. They're handing out water. They are helping the public get in the right line and move things along and get them to their flights faster. I think it's good PR for ICE. Demonized constantly by the mainstream media, demonized by Democrats. I mean, even as President Trump was deploying ICE to the airports, what did you hear Democrats say? Hakeem Jeffries and others on TV immediately. Oh, ICE is going to come to your airport and shoot you if you try to fly somewhere. I saw a lot of Democrats saying that. Extremely irresponsible, by the way. But what's the truth? Here's some water. Let me save your baby. Seems to me ICE is doing itself a world of good by answering the call here from the president as Democrats keep the Department of Homeland Security shut down. Let's talk about what's going on Capitol Hill. The Senate has not come to any deal on funding DHS. There is some rumblings that discussions are being held behind the scenes. Now, the Senate is supposed to go on Easter recess next week, but many senators are now saying that should be canceled, including Alabama's Katie Britt. Let's hear her in cut 24.
Well, first off, we're not leaving if this doesn't get done. I mean, lawmakers need to get ready to actually do their job. I mean, we've had 41 days of a Democrat-led shutdown. This is the second one of the fiscal year. When you're looking at people who have stepped forward to say, hey, we want to serve our homeland, we want to protect American citizens from coast to coast, Democrats are finding a way to not pay those individuals. Republicans are saying, let's get this done. We want to make sure that TSA is fully funded, Coast Guard is fully funded, CISA is fully funded, that we make sure that our Border Patrol agents are ready to protect our border and to take a look at the packages coming in, to do their jobs at our airport. We're looking at our law enforcement officers and our interior. We know how important that is, that is fully funded. So we're working diligently to get that done. We know that that's important to the American people, and so we're committed to making it happen. But I hope people get used to staying right here until that happens. We shouldn't be leaving at all.
That's Senator Katie Britt of Alabama. Now the Republican leader in the Senate, John Thune, has made some remarks in the last few minutes on the floor about what's going on with the Democrats who keep DHS shut down. They voted last night to keep it shut down. The Senate achieved 54 votes last night. They need 60. Let's hear from John Thune here in cut number 25.
Mr. President, it seems that Democrats have no interest in reaching an agreement. Many of them are perfectly willing to leave the Department of Homeland Security unfunded for the long term. They claim that they want to fund the department. They claim that they're concerned about TSA officers and others working without pay. But, Mr. President, talk is cheap, and their actions belie their words. If Democrats cared about TSA officers, if they cared about Coast Guard employees, if they cared about the vital work of the Department of Homeland Security, then they would be getting serious about closing a deal, not ceaselessly offering up the same unchanging list of demands like a broken record or a particularly nightmarish version of Groundhog Day.
That was Senator John Thune. Also on the Senate floor today, Republicans offered up a bill to require photo ID in nationwide elections. Seems reasonable since 85% of the country wants to do photo ID. It achieved 53 votes in the Senate. It needed 60. You can imagine who voted for it and against it. So happens to be the partisan split in the Senate is 53 Republicans and 47 Democrats. Democrats block voting against photo ID. President held a cabinet meeting at the White House this morning. Let's listen to the president here. Talked about Iran, cut number 18.
They now have the chance, that is Iran, to permanently abandon their nuclear ambitions and to chart a new path forward. We'll see if they want to do it. If they don't, we're their worst nightmare. In the meantime, we'll just keep blowing them away, unimpeded, unstopped. Well, there's not a thing they can do about it. They can't do anything about it, you know. I tell you, if they could, you'd be hearing about it. You'd be hearing about it. You don't hear anything about it.
Got a ton going on in Washington today, folks. Iran, the shutdown, all sorts of issues. And I see on my screen Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne from Texas. We're going to talk to her after this commercial break. She's going to give us an update from her perspective over in the House. First, a quick word from our friends at Relief Factor. I can't say enough good things about Relief Factor. We have really enjoyed this product in the Jennings household. And honestly, what I enjoy also is getting letters and notes from customers of Relief Factor, people all over the country, lots of states, lots of people, lots of walks of life. They have aches and pains that's getting in their way, keeping them from doing the things they want to do. We're getting all these letters and they say, I didn't know what to do. I took Relief Factor and, hey, everything is getting better for me. Relief Factor has recently introduced a new formula. They've added premium black pepper extract because it helps your body absorb the high-quality key ingredients more efficiently. That sounds pretty good to me. So if you've been listening to me talk about Relief Factor for a while, maybe this is your moment. Start with a 3-week quick start for just $19.95. Little to lose here, folks. Go to ReliefFactor.com or call 1-800-4-RELIEF. We're going to take a break. I see my friend Beth Van Duyne, Congresswoman from Texas. She's ready to go after the break. Stay with us here. It's the Scott Jennings Show on Salem.
Fighting for free speech and Western civilization. This is the Scott Jennings Show.
And it is Thursday, March 26th. Coming up in just a moment, the governor of Montana, the chairman of the Republican Governors Association, Greg Gianforte, will join us. Quick word, though, on behalf of this amazing cruise I'd like to invite you to. We're taking a cruise in November, the Gulf of America cruise. We celebrate America's 250th anniversary by sailing away across the turquoise waters, placing our toes upon the white sand beaches, eating the incredible food aboard the Eurodam, and having insightful conversations amongst ourselves about the future of our country. Mike Gallagher will be there. Larry O'Connor will be there. I'll be there. We'll dive into the issues shaping America, and we're going to do it all on this incredible cruise ship and see incredible scenery. The cabins are going fast, I have to tell you, but if you'd like to go, we could get one for you. Text the word cruise to 94878 or visit scottjenningsshow.com and click on the Gulf of America cruise banner. It's going to be a fun vacation right after the election. I know I'm going to need it. The election will have just ended, and maybe we'll take a week to sort things out amongst ourselves. It's the Scott Jennings Show here on Salem, common sense for the American people. Joining me now is the 25th governor of Montana. He also represented that state in the U.S. House for 2 terms. He's also the newly elected chairman of the Republican Governors Association. His name is Greg Gianforte. Governor, welcome back to the Scott Jennings Show.
Scott, it's good to be with you.
Thank you for having the time for us today, and thank you for your willingness to be a common sense leader for our country. And I want to talk about uncommon nonsense in Washington, D.C. in the form of the shutdown that's going on at the Department of Homeland Security. Democrats have had it shut down for 41 days. You know, you're a governor running an entire state. You're sometimes at the mercy of what the feds do. How is this impasse affecting Montana and everyday people that you represent back home?
Well, we just need Congress to do their job. With the biggest impact we're seeing here is really with the TSA agents at the airports. We are fortunate that 8 of our major airports in the state use private security, not official TSA agents. So that's given us a path to avoid a lot of the confusion. But, you know, the TSA agents that are working, we're, you know, in Helena, Missoula, there are private food drives, gift cards for TSA agents. These are people, you know, that put on the uniform, come to work every day to serve the public. An employer has an obligation to pay them. And just because of a couple Democrats in the Senate, they're holding the American people and these agents in particular hostage. They just need to get their act together and do their job.
Governor, you were in Congress for a couple of terms. You obviously dealt with a lot of these Democrats. You've been back home now for a bit. Are you shocked at just how far left the Democratic Party has gone when it comes to immigration and immigration enforcement? That's what this is all about. They don't want immigration enforcement, and their base expects them to do crazy things like shut down the Department of Homeland Security. Is it just incredible to you how far to the left Democrats have gone on simply enforcing the laws of our country?
Well, it is surprising. We see some of this craziness even in some of our blue enclaves here in the state of Montana. Back in 2021, I signed a bill that was pretty common sense. It just said, hey, we're not going to provide sanctuary to illegal immigrants in our communities. And by law, by statute in Montana, local law enforcement needs to work with federal law enforcement. We need to cooperate with Customs and Border Patrol. We need to cooperate with ICE. And yet we see some jurisdictions that think they can just ignore the law and do their own thing. I stood up with our Attorney General just last month and just called them out on that. We have communities that are in violation of state statute. There are penalties specified in the law. And if we find that, in fact, they have violated the law, we're going to implement these penalties, and we're going to cut off state funds, things like money for water and sewer systems. We're not going to tolerate defiance here in Montana.
So you all have a law in Montana where you can't have sanctuary cities, and the folks over in Helena are trying to violate that. Exactly what are they doing? How strident are they being? And if they are found to be violating this law, what are the penalties for doing so?
Yeah, so the Helena City Commission last month passed a resolution directing city law enforcement to not cooperate with ICE. We believe this is a violation of our anti-sanctuary city law. The law calls for $10,000 in fines for every 5 days of violation. Now, it was interesting. It was reported in a local paper that the lawyer for the city in council with the city commissioners said, geez, you might have to retract that resolution. The mayor and the city council have bowed their necks. They're having a town hall at the Civic Center tonight to try and decide how they're going to respond to the state actually implementing law that was passed by the legislature and signed by myself.
Incredible that you have local officials. Of course, we've seen this. This is what happened in Minnesota. We're seeing it in Virginia. The local officials trying to invite illegal alien populations into their cities. And, of course, it has disastrous consequences. We just saw in Chicago recently this weekend, a Venezuelan illegal alien killed an 18-year-old college freshman there, Sheridan Gorman. We see this happen over and over again. I'm a little surprised to hear it's happening in Montana, but sounds like you're willing to deal with it and stand up to it, which is what I assumed 90% of your constituents would want you to do. I would think most people out there would find this to be crazy.
Yeah, these are small pockets, but even here, I mean, we've seen the inflow of fentanyl from the southern border into all of our communities. DHS and ICE have arrested 14, the worst of the worst, here in Montana. So we are not immune to the cartels, even though we're a northern border state. We've seen the impacts of the open border policy. We need to be working with federal law enforcement to make our communities safe.
All right, Governor Gianforte of Montana, that's the voice you're hearing, our special guest here on the Scott Jennings Show. Governor, I want to talk a little politics. In addition to running Montana, you're also running the Republican Governors Association. We call it the RGA, and I think there's like 36 governors races and maybe 3 territories this year that have races. So talk to us about the RGA's priority states. What races are you looking at as being the hottest governor's races in the country? How are you feeling about Republican chances in these state races?
Well, given the lunacy on the other side, pretty good. You're right. There's 36 governor's races. In red states, we see lower and lower unemployment. We see lower and lower taxes. We see more and more freedom. In blue states, we see higher and higher taxes. We see budget deficits, and we see people fleeing those states. We're experiencing that here. So 36 races. The RGA's philosophy is pretty simple. We don't get involved in landslides. There's some states that are going to vote red no matter what we do. And we don't get involved in lost causes. There are some states that have lost their way, and they're not going to vote for a Republican. So there's a handful of states where we really see them as battleground states. There's no reason why Arizona is not a red state. It should have a red governor. Kansas should be a red state. Michigan, interesting situation in Michigan where we have a Democrat running as an independent, which will split the Democrat vote. So we have a path to victory there. Wisconsin as well. Tom Piffany's doing a good job. I think he stands in great shape. We need to re-win Georgia. That's a purple state. Brian Kemp's done a great job, but it's going to be a fight. And then Joe Lombardo in Nevada has done a great job. Former sheriff of Las Vegas, but pretty even in the polls because again, it's a purple state. So that's a little rundown of where we see the opportunities. And there's probably some others where, depending on how the primaries go, I mean, there's over a dozen people running for governor in Alaska, and they have this crazy ranked choice voting. We have no idea what's going to come out of the primary. So we have to wait and see on some of these. But the ones I mentioned are where our focus is.
A lot of our political talk these days, Governor, is really nationalized. Everything revolves around President Trump or what's happening in Washington. Do these governor's races, though, give Republicans a unique opportunity to really localize politics, talk about competence in governing, talk about what makes this state or what could make this state a better place to live? Is that kind of a strategic focus that you would advise gubernatorial candidates to take?
Oh, yeah. I mean, politics is local. And we see it here because in Montana, there is a stark contrast between us and Washington State or Oregon or California or Colorado because they have blue governors. Here, I have some business attraction guys at the Department of Commerce. We go to those states. We find freedom-loving individuals, and our appeal is very simple. We just say, hey, you want to move back to America? And
I love it.
They come. We entertain 3 to 6 business owners a month looking at locations in Montana. We're talking to one large manufacturer in Washington State right now. They're looking at moving their entire operation. It's going to be, it could be hundreds of millions of dollars invested here in Montana. And that'll create jobs and prosperity. We're one of only 2 states in the country, because of our conservative policies, where wage growth has exceeded inflation over the last 5 years. One of only 2 states, us and Florida. And it's because we let people keep the fruits of their labor. We've repealed 35% of the regulations in the state, keeping only the ones we need. We've paid off all our debt. Montana's completely debt-free. We've balanced our budget. And as a result, people are prospering here.
Yeah, you look at what's going on in red states. Education is getting better. You have people paying less taxes. You have businesses moving in. The migration situation in this country, people are leaving blue states, going to red states. There's a reason for all of this, and the reasons are policy and leadership. Governor Greg Gianforte of Montana, thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to having you back as we track down these governor's races for the rest of the year. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Scott.
All right. Take care, Governor. It's the Scott Jennings Show on Salem. We're going to take a break. Before we do, I do want to talk to you about Operation Epic Fury and what is happening in the Holy Land. With all of these missiles raining down on Israel, the red alert sirens are filling the air constantly. And if you're there, and believe me, last summer I was there. I experienced this. When the sirens go off, you've got like 15 seconds to get into a bomb shelter. That is daily life for the folks in Israel. And it's at times like these that we are grateful for the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. They prepare large-scale distributions of food, first aid, and emergency essentials. They take care of Israel's most vulnerable, the sick, the elderly, children, and families. They all depend on the work of the fellowship. I'm asking you to join with Christians and Jews around the world in praying for the protection of Israel, her people, and the brave American and Israeli troops who are putting their lives on the line fighting the brutal Iranian regime. Stand up with Israel today. You can do it by going to supportifcj.org. That is supportifcj.org. One last break, and when we come back, my buddies from Berna are going to be here. What is Berna, you might ask? I want to tell you about it after this. Come back. It's Scott Jennings on Salem.
America's favorite pundit. It's Scott Jennings.
Home stretch here on Thursday, March 26th. Excited for this conversation. My buddies from Berna are here, B-Y-R-N-A. If you're a regular listener, you've heard me talking about Berna. They make the non-lethal pepper pellet gun for self-defense. I've got the Director for Law Enforcement and Government Affairs from Berna here, Joshua Sherrard. Joshua, welcome to the Scott Jennings Show. I'm glad you're with us today. I want you to tell the listeners about Berna. I've been talking about it on the air now for a few weeks, but tell us, what was the inspiration behind creating this Berna tool for self-protection? It's a non-lethal launcher system. But tell us about the inspiration behind it.
Thanks, Scott. So Byrna is a less lethal self-defense company. And back in 2019, when we started looking at the landscape of self-defense tools that your average citizen had access to, it was either a gun on one end or it was tiny keychain pepper spray in your fists on the other. And unfortunately, there was this giant gap. And so we realized that we could come in and create a tool that people could incorporate into their everyday life, into their own ecosystem that filled that gap. And it was so much more likely to be useful in so many more scenarios than both that gun or that tiny keychain pepper spray or those fists even as well. And that's where we really saw the giving people options that they could fit into their lifestyle was so key in making sure that they were prepared to defend every day.
All right, so let's talk about the legality of this. It's a non-lethal launcher, so I guess it's not proper to call it a gun in the sense that we use that term in the United States commonly. But is it legal to own everywhere? Can you get this in all 50 states?
That is correct. It is not a firearm. We don't refer to it, and legally it's not. It cannot be and is not referred to as a firearm. So it is legal in all 50 states. There's no permits required anywhere. There's no background checks. You can order it online. You can go to our website. You can go to Amazon. You can go into one of our 3,000 dealers anywhere in the U.S. and buy this. You can take it across state lines. You can take it. I fly with it every week. I put it in my check bag. No declaring, no nothing. I can fly with it. It's so easy to carry everywhere you go. You don't have to worry about reciprocity. You don't have to worry about if it's legal for me to carry in that state. You know it can go anywhere with you, and you're going to be protected everywhere.
All right, I've got one of these things and shot it. Very easy to use. But tell us how the product works, specifically the pepper pellets. Tell us how it works to disarm somebody who might be an assailant.
So it uses a CO2 cartridge that stays in that launcher unpierced. So there's no worry about leaking cartridges, anything like that. You pull the trigger, it pierces the cartridge, fires that 68 or 61 caliber ball that contains a powderized chemical agent. When it hits a target, you get a 3 to 5 foot cloud of chemical agent mixed with both pepper spray and CS, the active ingredient in tear gas, which will immediately incapacitate anyone and put them down and allow you to escape. They're going to be incapacitated for anywhere, from half an hour to 45 minutes or beyond. So the whole point is it buys you time, allows you to escape, uses a very low level of force to incapacitate an attacker, which makes it so useful in so many different scenarios.
I shot this thing in my backyard, and I got to tell you, it looks like it would hurt like the dickens if you shot somebody with it. Wouldn't kill them. It's non-lethal, but man, it's going to dissuade someone from continuing to approach you, yes?
Absolutely. I mean, you get the pain compliance of that ball hitting you at 400 feet per second, and then of course the powderized chemical agent to incapacitate them. So it definitely, we get a lot of reports from law enforcement. Law enforcement all over the nation, all over the world is using it. Over 800 agencies here in the U.S. and then several countries all over the world. And we get a lot of reports that people thought they were shot. They heard a pow, they felt an immense amount of pain, and down they go. So and compliant they become. So that's exactly what we want. A low level of force, but a high level of effectiveness.
All right, I love this product. It's light, it's easy to use, it's easy to load. You can keep it in your car. If you've got kids like I do, you don't have to worry about them having access to a firearm unnecessarily. There's a lot of reasons to have a Byrna product. Also, assembled in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So the good folks up there in Fort Wayne are putting it together. It's an American product. Tell us, Joshua, where do we find this? I know you said you can get it in a lot of places, but if you want to learn more and go directly to the Byrna ecosystem, where online should people go?
Absolutely. Go to Byrna.com, BYRNA.com to learn more. Join one of the over 750,000 people who already choose Byrna to defend themselves every day, and that number is growing every minute.
It's called Byrna, B-Y-R-N-A. That voice you're hearing, Joshua Sherrard. He's the Director of Law Enforcement for Byrna. I'm going to be honest. I didn't know what to make of this when we first learned about it. I got it at my house. I get it, and I would recommend you check it out. They sell a lot of these things, and it's a great product. Joshua, thanks for coming on the Scott Jennings Show. We're going to get out of Florida now and go back to our old Kentucky home. We'll be broadcasting from Louisville tomorrow. Enjoy opening day of Major League Baseball, and we'll have all the breaking news back with you tomorrow here on Common Sense for the American People. I'm Scott Jennings. Have a great evening.
The voice of reason, common sense for the American people. This is the Scott Jennings Show.